dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Dying Times here. That's right. We're talking about Army of Darkness on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from medieval times. And I'm not talking about the restaurant where you're allowed to order Pepsi, but you have to use your hands to eat chicken. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. We're going to unpack all the goriest of details of 1992 to 1993's Army of Darkness in the hopes that a soldier's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to make sure I get thrown into the bitch pit. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How you doing today, Gina?
I was going to say that I was going to ask which one of us is each other's bad Ash, but you're clearly the bad Ash in this this situation.
Well, and I love to do a little dance for people in the middle of in the middle of meeting them, and
while punching them at the same time.
Yeah, poking them in the eye, do a little jig. You know, that's definitely my territory. And so we're back in franchise territory here to talk about Army of Darkness, a fantastic motion picture. Gina, when did you first witness with your own eyeballs the incredible Army of Darkness?
Well, you know what? When it came out in the movie theater for about a weekend, I did actually want to go see it. I think that the trailer had looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think that I'd only seen one of the Evil Deads by that point, probably the second one. I think I'd seen that one. Like most people, I'd seen that one actually first.
Yeah.
So this would have been not in theaters, but probably maybe when it came into video. So probably about 94.
I did see this in movie theaters. I saw it at the AMC 10 before it was the AMC 12, before it became the AMC 14, and now the AMC 16.
Now it's the AMC Infinity. It's just an amalgam of just hallways and theaters, like the theater and Bachelor Party.
This is back when it was just two main hallways. You either went left or you went right, and they didn't have one big theater at the end. Eventually, they built two big theaters at the end.
They ran that one in the janitor's closet.
Yes. And now it's raised to the ground. Now it's just now it's an apartment complex with some restaurants at the bottom of it. And there's a statue of Batman. And they built a whole new AMC, basically across I'm using dick fingers here, across the street from it. An entirely new complex that I've been in once or twice. It's actually where I saw The Substance, for example. I got a speeding ticket on the way to see it, the only speeding ticket I've ever received. And I ended up going to comedy driving school to get rid of those points on my record.
Did you watch Blood Flows Red on the Highway?
Wait, something akin to that? Absolutely. I believe it was the same industrial I had watched in high school.
Were you the cool guy who showed up hungover with his sunglasses on?
No, this was not an era in which I, quote unquote, showed up hungover anywhere.
Or was the cool guy?
No. No one referred to me as cool for any particular reason, but I was absolutely amped for this motion picture. And And I recognized pretty quickly, okay, this is not just going to be a redo of Evil Dead 1 or 2. This is really going to be its own thing. And then very quickly got into the headspace of what it was attempting to do. And I loved it from the moment go, but I don't believe anyone else in my group seeing it, nor anyone else in that theater, was as enthusiastic about Army of Darkness as I was.
Oh,
For whatever reason. I just think it is something you need to just accept. This is not what you were getting previous to this. This is something else. But all of the movie's references were things that I got almost immediately, and I just decided I'm on the movie's wavelength. I think it also helps that every 5 lines is a fucking classic.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. My little group of friends was very into it. I believe, if I recall, you're just a goody little two shoes became a an oft quoted line in our friends group. So yeah, I'm surprised that were you the only Three Stooges fan in that theater?
I think I may have been the only person in that theater who immediately got the Quiet Man reference when he undoes Embeth Davis's bun and kisses her by a doorway. And I have been forced to watch The Quiet Man every year by my father. So that was something I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I've been forced to watch Jason and the Argonauts. This was all the things that I had weirdly both consumed myself and been forced to watch as like my dad going, this is cool and you need to know this. And these were the good references. I don't believe I have really benefited from the amount of F1 racing he forced me to watch. That the fact that I know what a chicane is not necessarily knowledge I use on the everyday. But I do believe a lot of the actual cinematic references that he wanted me to ingest, with the exception of Zorro the Gay Blade, were all very beneficial to me. I have not forced my child to watch Zorro the Gay Blade because I don't want to be brought up on charges.
No, that's I'm gonna say that's definitely a true, they couldn't make that these days.
Yeah, but they also shouldn't make it these days.
No. I mean, it is. We are thankfully while homophobia and certainly transphobia is still a pervasive issue in modern day America. We no longer at least have movies in which the entire thrust of the plot is, well, you see, he's gay.
So this is very, very different. You have to understand this is hilarious because instead of liking ladies, he liked a man.
What?
Well, I know this is gonna blow your skirt back, but honestly, this one particular guy, and it is totally random that it is this one guy, instead of enjoying the company of women in terms of sexuality, for some reason thinks guys are hot, and it is hilarious. This movie, upon its release, did not exactly get rapturous reviews. As I am wont to do these days, I check out what Roger Ebert gives a movie because while he's not the world's biggest horror fan, I tend to believe he had a more generous heart. But for whatever reason, he seems very, well, he doesn't completely pan the movie. It's like a down the line 2-star out of 4, but he kind of goes off and like, well, a lot of this seems recycled from the other 2 movies, especially its, comedic approach. And I'm like, you feel like Evil Dead 2 is something this is trying to just copy? What movies did we watch, Mr. Ebert? I would like more details to this, but it is a very brief and succinct review in which he's like, it's okayish. And I'm like, I don't know how fucking okayish this movie is. I will grant you it might not be everybody's bag, but I stand again on these terms. Every 5th line is something you've heard a billion times in pop culture, because this movie is just like banger after banger after banger when it comes to dialogue.
And I feel like it's we're now to a point where people reference it and aren't aware they're referencing it. Like it's just become like, I'm not sure how many average people, how many people know where Boomstick comes from.
Exactly.
It comes from this, folks. It comes from this.
Give me some sugar, baby.
Yeah.
Primitive Screwheads. Like, it goes on and on and on and on. The amount of like just little one-liners. And then you read some of these reviews and like, it seems to be lampooning modern action movies, but in this medieval, Jason and the Argonauts style. And it just seems confused. And I'm like, every part of this is on purpose, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Campbell is knowingly leaning into playing a handsome dummy.
Yes,
because that's pretty much what Ash is, but was not aware for the first two movies that he is in fact a handsome dummy.
Well, this is really something that I would like to dig into before we, what is the plot of this movie? He goes back in time. He's an idiot. They try to kill him. When that doesn't work, they figure, well, maybe he knows how to stop the evil dead. They send him on a quest to get the Necronomicon because it can stop the evil dead and send him back in time. And he fucks up almost all of it and still ends up kind of being a hero despite how bad he is at it. And his character arc from the first movie, which was empathetic guy who unfortunately has to kill his girlfriend, to not as an empathetic guy, but definitely a Looney Tunes character who has to kill his girlfriend, to guy who is so confident in his stupidity and yet is able to make a medieval mechanical arm and fix his car in the 1300s, but cannot memorize the third line of Klaatu Barada Nikto. Another, The Day the Earth Stood Still, another movie my dad forced me to watch.
He is as smart or as dumb as the plot needs him to be,
Mm-hmm.
which is frequently a screenwriting tactic that writers will use. But here it's pretty deliberate. Whereas in other movies, we're kind of hoping you don't notice that suddenly this character is a lot smarter than they were two scenes ago.
Well, he does, he has textbook knowledge because he has brought textbooks with him from the future and is able to use it to create these, amalgams and mysterious metal compositions in the distant past. One of my favorite explanations for his character transformation over this is he's genuinely been driven over the edge. Like Evil Dead 2 is, for the vast majority of the movie, just him being driven insane by demons. And at the other end of it, he's not the same person because you watched him talk to demonic deer heads on the wall. Like, you don't walk out of that a normal guy who has regular conversations.
No.
Whether it was by design or it was a happy circumstance, or they just felt this is what we need because we want it to be, in my mind, this is the Looney Tunes version of a Yankee in King Arthur's court.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much. While also parodying, a lot of the wisecracking action hero movies of the 80s.
Yes, a fair amount of his lines are just one-liners directed at various people at various times for whatever reason.
With the ironic eyebrow cocked, which is definitely a thing.
Yes, but he rattles them off to absolutely everyone at all times. And so therefore, they're not as special as, let's say, Commandos Stick Around. But they mean more. They have lasted longer than almost all of the grand, pronouncements of 80s action heroes, of the yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, of the stick around, of I'll kill you last, I lied. You insert the line and people will absolutely be aware of them. But as you have said, this has crawled more deeply into pop culture to the point where people do not know what they are referencing when they say some of these lines back or use them as reference points.
Right.
The bastard stepchild of the Evil Dead series, I feel, is Army of Darkness because it is so outside the realm of it, which is why I find it interesting that some of the reactions at the time was like, this seems recycled. I'm like, you don't know how fucking good you have it. Are you serious? I mean, this is when people complain about critics these days, and oh, they don't get it, but like you can say that. You can say, I don't agree with this or whatever. But I do think there's an element that people need to remember in terms of a film's critical reception, and that history decides ultimately the placement of a movie within pop culture. It is not critics. It is not fans. It is not box office. Things can do very well financially and disappear from the cultural lexicon. And something can do next to nothing in terms of its box office weight or critical reviews and still last and be as vital as the moment they were released. It's not as economically viable for the people who invested their time and money in it, but that is the truth that people have to remember when it comes to movies.
Right. But I could put this on tomorrow, next week, and it would still feel as fresh and charming as it did the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention was that this was my daughter isn't much into horror movies as I am. Mm-hmm. She tolerates watching a few for mostly for my benefit. Yeah. But this was her introduction to horror movies for me. She was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was like, you know what? Let's watch a scary movie. Right. And I'm trying to think, what's a good scary movie for a 7-year-old? And I'm like, well, it's got skeletons.
Yeah.
The burnt up, ash clone is kind of scary, I guess, to a kid, but she thought it was very funny and very entertaining. And then yeah, I feel slightly off color language aside, it's also kind of oddly family friendly, which is nothing you would say remotely about the other two.
Right. Which makes it's R rating so insane.
Yeah, I mean, you got to. I mean, I suspect the scene in the well, I guess it is, where they toss him in with and like all the blood that shoots out of it probably has a lot to do with that. But yeah, I think this could have been taken with a few cuts. This could have easily been taken down to a PG-13. Yeah, and then you might have gotten a slightly bigger audience for it.
Within a few years, it's playing on television practically unedited.
Yeah,
with the exception of a bit of language here and there. It is very tame in almost every single way and so ludicrous you can't really take it seriously. But what I really enjoy about it is how seriously it takes itself. And not in a self-serious, but it views the plot mechanics and getting the Necronomicon and a battle between two kingdoms when they're honestly being threatened by a greater, more nefarious, third party. All this is taken with real, legitimate seriousness.
Right. Yeah. There's as silly as it is sometimes, there's never a point where you feel like anyone involved is thinking, "But this is really stupid."
Ash is the one completely out of its element thing. And then on the Evil Dead side, they are predominantly goofballs. That is what I think what will be interesting to talk about when we get to 2013's Evil Dead, because it takes an entirely different tone to the Evil Dead franchise. And that somewhat throws some of the longer lived Evil Dead fans into, and myself upon my first reaction to it, I'm like, oh, well, this isn't my Evil Dead.
This isn't fun.
Right.
This is dark.
These people are not having a good time. They are not talking to dead, deer heads on the wall.
That's not Ted Raimi dressed as an old fat lady.
Although in my mind, he's there in spirit, if not in actual physical.
I just feel like Ted Raimi wouldn't have, or at least Sam Raimi wouldn't have let him like drop the C word. That's how you know they're not messing around. It's like, oh, these Deadites are dropping the C. Okay.
Okay. I get you. I feel you.
These are some real potty mouths.
They have a real rude toot in a whole different way. In the other Evil Dead movies that we've discussed, we have been able to dig into characters with some amount of seriousness. Like, what is it about them that causes them to react in such a way? You know, where are they coming from when they make these faces, when they do what they do? They have motivation. In this one, I don't know that anyone has a hardcore character. They're archetypes. You've got a wise man, you've got a king, you've got a rogue, and you've got Sheila.
Oh yeah, you got Sheila.
Sheila, you know, Princess Sheila.
The fair maiden Sheila.
They can understand Ash, but they don't understand Ash. Ash is in practically a different movie than they are. They're stand-ins for various things, and they don't last very long. I will say that M. Beth Davis is able to portray both the wounded sister, love interest, and evil hag in one movie. This is her first American movie. And honestly, she does all three of her assignments really fucking well.
Yeah.
This doesn't leave them hanging so much. They're just not the most important thing. It is, at the end of the day, as the opening credits tell you, Bruce Campbell versus the Evil Dead, versus Army of Darkness. See, I did it myself.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Everybody sleeps, but no two people sleep alike. At Coop Sleep Goods, we celebrate the way you sleep differently. We believe everyone deserves a great night's sleep with their own pillow. And the adjustable, customizable Coop pillow makes it easy. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or even a starfish, we've got the perfect pillow for you. Crafted with our innovative memory foam and microfiber fill, our hypoallergenic pillows adjust to you, not the other way around. Just tailor the fill for the perfect fit. Add some in, take some out, until your pillow's just right for you. See why luxury hotels and spas worldwide feature Coop Sleep Goods and why we have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. With our 100-night risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose, except those sleepless nights. Get 25% off your first order when you visit coopsleepgoods.com/comedy. That's COOP sleepgoods.com/comedy.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley's small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
Now, see, by this point, Bruce Campbell became, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
And he leaned into it, he was starting to play a lot of roles and sort of parodied that strong-jawed action hero.
Yeah.
And I think that the choice, I agree with you that you can't really do any deep dive into the characters of this because, again, I think it is so cheerfully parodying, action films and, medieval fantasy movies And what do those movies suffer from? Lack of characterization.
Right.
Like you look at a movie like Excalibur, which I can't say for certain this is this is trying to parody that in some way. But again, you've got the archetype. I mean, it does involve King Arthur, or at least a King Arthur like figure. But even Excalibur, you've got noble King Arthur, Lancelot, who's torn between loyalties. You've got Merlin, you've got Morgana, but it's like everybody comes into this movie with what they already know about these characters, and the movie does not really add more to that.
No.
It's kind of suggests you already know who these people are. We don't have to explain what the Round Table is, and I mean, honestly, I kind of appreciate that because no, I don't actually need to know how the Round Table came to be, or what the Round Table is, or if it's even literally a round table.
This is just slamming him, literally dropping him into the medieval myth you already know.
Right. I mean, and I know who Ash is already. Like I imagine a lot of people did go to see this without any knowledge of the Evil Dead movies, which is a puzzling choice. But but a choice a lot of people make with franchise movies of seeing one without benefit of seeing anything that came before it. Yes. And then often being puzzled and annoyed when they don't quite understand what's happening.
Right. I mean, it is in the midst of the VHS era, and a lot of films are available, but not every film is going to be available to every person who happens to own a VHS, machine.
No, but it still seems like, something you may want to have a little knowledge ahead of. But again, the movie does that. I believe there is a sort of, recap, but it doesn't really go too deep into it.
No, it just tells you what you need to know.
Right, the salient points.
Right. Is that Ash had to kill his girlfriend, and that weighs on him. He fought, the Deadites. He was driven crazy by it. And then he got sucked into a wormhole and landed in medieval times. And that's it. That's all you need of a setup for this. Everything else is just going to be crazy time funny paints. It's just off the rails.
And apparently worked at a Target-like store at some point.
Right, yes, a Kmart variant, as it were. And for whatever reason. And this movie just starts running from the word go. Now, let's do a little bit of backstory so we can, so the audience, if they don't know already, if they haven't owned this film in 4 different variations on DVD and Blu-ray, and now 4K like I do, I'll give you a little backstory about it. So this started life as the Medieval Dead, and honestly, this was going to be part of Evil Dead 2. But when they started to raise money and started to plot out how much it would cost to actually, in the middle of the movie, just zap them into medieval times and do the rest of the story, they're like, we don't have the money for this. So it kind of becomes that pitch they have in their back pocket to give to other people. So after Evil Dead 2 is released, Raimi ends up selling a movie called Darkman, which if you have not seen, run, do not walk to see it, and is an absolute thematic through line in terms of this and An Army of Darkness. They have the same sense of humor. They have the same sense of sending up a hero. And in that case, comic book movies in Army of Darkness, the Arthurian legend. And so that does really well for Universal. And they're like, what have you got? And he goes, well, I've got this one thing, but it's kind of tied up with Dino De Laurentiis. He's committed $8 million to this, but it's not enough to actually make the movie. And so Dino and Universal end up going halvesies on this. And that is the last time any party is in agreement about Army of Darkness.
We have to go back, like one of these days, like the I really do need to, or somebody needs to create a wiki of the show, because I need to know at this point how many movies we have discussed on this program that involve the phrase Dino De Laurentiis. Because wow, there is a lot.
It really does run through, and I do think there's an element that we're drawn to by Dino's dips into the horror genre.
Well, also
in
it has to
particular.
do with the our decrepitude. That
Yeah.
Dino De Laurentiis had kind of an iron grip on just movies in general.
Yeah.
Of the 70s through the early 90s.
Yeah.
So it's not it's not unusual that he would come up a lot, but just like they get Dino De Laurentiis involved, and then he proceeds to argue with them about every aspect of the movie along the way.
Well, De Laurentiis, to his credit on this particular film, is not getting in Raimi's way all that much. He is letting him make the movie he wants to make. He doesn't entirely have all the funds that he will need to actually finish this movie with the budget that De Laurentiis, provides him. But he gets him to the point where he's actually, making a movie, getting locations, funding effects houses to make, marching skeletons and transform, Bruce Campbell's face into, this half moon Mac Tonight character at one point. What really drives a wedge between everybody and this movie has nothing to do with the movie itself. Now, Universal, when they first see it, are not fans. They don't know if it's fish or fowl. They absolutely knew what Darkman was, but here they're like, a lot of it is silly and it's not scary for an Evil Dead thing, but we also don't think anyone knows what Evil Dead is, which is insane to me. But okay, I'm coming at it from a slightly different generation. The old white men who were up in the top of the Black Tower were like, no one fucking knows what an Evil Dead movie is. They know what a Sam Raimi movie might be. And if you release this with Ash at the end, waking up in apocalyptic robot times, this movie's just going to fucking fail day one.
Which, it's not wrong.
I mean, as Bruce Campbell puts it, he likes the fact that the movie kind of has two well-known endings. It's like it's a multiverse. And one, it's kind of depressing, but very on brand for Ash. And the other, he's more heroic and hasn't learned a single lesson. It's just like, let's fire a shotgun in the middle of a store.
And show off for Bridget Fonda.
Well, Bridget Fonda's deaded in the ground. There's a new hot chick.
Oh, that's
at
right. Yeah, I was gonna say Bridget Fonda, who gets no dialogue.
He is
favor.
showing off as much for Ted Raimi as he is for that one hot chick. So Universal's like, we're gonna shut you out. This is ultimately like an 88-minute movie, and we're gonna cut like 9 minutes out of this thing. They tighten a bunch of stuff up that doesn't necessarily benefit it. And now when you see like the director's cut, you're like, okay, this is a better movie. It's only 90 minutes. It's not that much longer, but it makes more sense. It actually connect a few more dots that Universal just wants to get rid of in terms of how the movie plays out. They don't quite understand it. But the other element that is also very kill by kill important is that at the center of the dispute between Dilo De Laurentiis and his long cigarette holder behind the desk where he's telling everybody in this movie, the monkey die and everybody cry. And Universal is the fact that Dino has produced Manhunter and owns the cinematic rights to Hannibal fucking Lecter.
Oh, boy.
So in February of 1992, Silence of the Lambs comes out. Now, it was originally supposed to be a December release, but Orion ran out of money, and so they pushed it to February. So it comes out on Valentine's Day. And It's a fucking sensation. It just lives in theaters for so long, and they don't have a fucking Oscar campaign for that movie. It just creates its own for your consideration campaign by how fucking good it is. And so by the following year, it is nominated for multiple Oscars. It wins the big four. It wins director, actor, actress, and adapted screenplay. It is a fucking phenomenon. So Universal, sensing that Orion, despite all this cash influx, has actually spent all their money. So in this, in short succession, they've spent a shit ton of money on Dances with Wolves and gained a ton of money from Dances with Wolves, and then spent a fair amount of money on, this movie, and it does so well and wins Oscars, and they still can't get out of Hawk. They're like $61 million in the tank. They just cannot get their way out of it. So there becomes a hot potato for Hannibal Lecter. You have this massive potential franchise in somebody's mind that you're going to just make more Hannibal Lecter movies somehow. And so Universal's like, you give us the rights to Hannibal Lecter. And Dino De Laurentiis is like, fuck you, pay me. And they use Army of Darkness as this hot potato. We're not going to release this movie until you give us these rights. And that's how this movie that was started filming in 1991, was premiered in October of 1992, doesn't hit theaters until 1993.
Yeah, so it's basically like, a victim of dick waving, as so many movies are.
Yes. As a result, it has almost no promotion campaign attached to it. They can't agree on a poster for it. It doesn't seem like an Evil Dead sequel. It also doesn't seem to be enough of its own thing. It's certainly not a popular genre at the time of its release to go, here's a sword and sorcery and demon horror comedy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you could absolutely, obviously the first two Evil Dead movies and all subsequent Evil Dead movies are straight horror. You could argue that there are some comedic elements to part two.
A lot of it. It's so loony that it is laughable, but also part of it is it's so over the top. It's so trying to drive the main character insane that it is just funny in a weird way. And then it culminates in him, using the stump of the hand he just sawed off and then making a device so that he can replace it with a chainsaw. That is not drama in most households.
but when you look at Army of Darkness, I would say that horror ranks a distant third to how I would describe the genres this movie falls under. It is predominantly adventure and comedy.
Yeah. I mean, it varies. The windmill sequence, once he, heads off to get the Necronomicon and he finds respite in this windmill after that Ramocam style chase sequence, becomes a miniature cabin in the woods horror flick. But it's also like a Jason and the Argonauts movie. It's Looney Tunes. It's a Yankee in King Arthur's Court. It's Wolfman. It's the Three Stooges. It's all of those things in one movie. And nowadays, I think people are more willing to have that grand a mix. But I always feel like for mass audiences, they can about tolerate a mix of two things. If you introduce a third element, they'll start to get confused. And I don't like that about society. It's not to say that you can't do it. This is a bouillabaisse of a bunch of different things. And its cult classic stature, validates the way it was made and the writing, the directing, the special effects, all of it.
Well, I think that I was thinking about what movie would this be a good comparison to. And for some reason, my mind fell on Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh, yes. Okay.
In which you have, a lot of, mixed genres. And it suffered in the fact that, this movie was made and the studio basically looks at the final product and says, what the fuck are we supposed to do with this now? Like, who is our market for this? Because obviously the idea of a franchise is with each new movie, you hope to draw in new audiences. To who will maybe either go back and watch the other two, the rest of the movies in the franchise, either before or after watching the new movie. Now granted, Phantom of the Paradise was not part of a franchise, but still the same elements are, we're trying a lot of different things. We're to predominantly successful results, but that means nothing if we don't know how to market it. And this is your job. Yeah. So I would be curious as to how the Patrick of today, if he had been handed over, Army of Darkness or Phantom of the Paradise, how you would have gone about marketing that to as large an audience as possible.
Right. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, because it is providing something that just isn't the hot genre at the time in terms of this is almost a sword and sandal medieval, Arthurian legend mixed with horror thing. I would, from the studio that brought you Conan the Barbarian, in the sense that this is a grand adventure to the past in a way you've never seen before.
Well, it's interesting that
lean into the bombast of it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because have you seen the overseas artwork for this?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I implore all of you who are listening, if you are unfamiliar, just go to its Wikipedia page and scroll down, because I am pretty sure they just pasted Arnold Schwarzenegger's body from the Conan, the one of the Conan movies onto and definitely made it look more like a straightforward fantasy movie and not anything having to do with the Evil Dead movies or even anything meant to be funny, just a very melodramatic fantasy adventure.
In a lot of ways, I think someone probably looks at this and goes, so many shitty sword and sandal movies that come out in we have to capture the moment before Conan the Barbarian actually hits, to we need to capitalize off the back of its success and capitalize on this genre. Sort of like, is this the genre that's the new Star Wars, the new science fiction? This movie doesn't look particularly better than a lot of those, especially the interior sets. Like there's no difference between the let's go she bitch scene with the Deadite who's attacking him with a chamber pot and shit like that. That doesn't look substantially different than any sword and sorcery movie that you saw lampooned on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
No,
it's not that richly realized. What it is at its core is a shit ton of fun. Whereas those movies you're watching to laugh at, this movie you're watching to laugh with.
Right. It's a very whatever it parodies, it does it very lovingly.
Yeah.
Which again, that's also a hard line to maintain, because you've got a lot of these, now I never, to be fair, I never watched a single one of them, but the Seltzer and Friedman movies, there's, my impression of there's a certain sort of mean spiritedness to them. And I just like, that's not fun. It's like, I mean, there's plenty of room for satire, and then there's also room for loving parody. And this is clearly, things that Sam Raimi enjoys.
Yeah. Whereas those particular parodies start to feel like, don't you hate this shit?
Yeah, and let's find a way to incorporate a semen joke into this,
right.
Let's find a way to humiliate this female character. And it's just like, this isn't enjoyable.
For whatever reason, that Scary Movie 1 and 2 element where, yes, they're very ribald. Yes, they're very sexual, but those are trying to really harness an airplane-esque element of scary movies in a particularly heightened, zany way. The genius, in my opinion, of something like the original Airplane is that it is deadly serious and uses the original script that they're parodying for the vast majority of the screenplay. They're adding jokes to a serious thing. And here, they're practically doing the same thing in that the vast majority of this movie happens to be an Arthurian legend quest movie with a bunch of wacky ass Evil Dead shit added on to it. And as a result, it's just something you have to embrace. And I don't think you can force audiences to embrace things. They either do or they don't. That's an element you simply cannot control. But this movie had almost no marketing budget, so you couldn't really tell people what it was. And all the people who had the money to tell them kind of didn't want to. They wanted it to magically fade away.
Yeah, I don't know that 1993 audiences would have been drawn in by, except maybe you and me and a couple other people, might have been drawn in by. You ever want to see Ray Harryhausen do a medieval fantasy movie? Well, here it is.
Yeah, here it is. Here you got it. It's the thing you never knew you always wanted. And I also think there's an element of the complicated hero problem because we're not quite at the place where the heroes of action fare were allowed to be a lot of different variations. There had been an archetype as established in the 80s and then somewhat circumvented by Die Hard in that here's the relatable version of this that is legitimately funny by circumstance as opposed to a lot of hammy lines. And we're not quite at the place where we've discovered what that new evolution is. The other thing this movie has that this has in common is Big Trouble in Little China, in that you have a hero who's not the actual hero of the movie intentionally.
Yeah, there you go. That's another great example of a movie that mixes a lot of genres with a touch of horror. And again, when this came out, people were like, I don't know what to do with this. It's like what? What is this?
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Need new glasses or want a fresh new style? Warby Parker has you covered. Glasses start at just $95, including anti-reflective, scratch-resistant prescription lenses that block 100% of UV rays. Every frame's designed in-house with a huge selection of styles for every face shape. And with Warby Parker's free home try-on program, you can order 5 pairs to try at home for free. Shipping is free both ways, too. Go to warbyparker.com/covered to try 5 pairs of frames at home for free. warbyparker.com/covered.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. 1 purchased equals 1 donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Everybody sleeps, but no two people sleep alike. At Coop Sleep Goods, we celebrate the way you sleep differently. We believe everyone deserves a great night's sleep with their own pillow. And the adjustable, customizable Coop pillow makes it easy. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or even a starfish, we've got the perfect pillow for you. Crafted with our innovative memory foam and microfiber fill, our hypoallergenic pillows adjust to you, not the other way around. Just tailor the fill for the perfect fit. Add some in, take some out, until your pillow's just right for you. See why luxury hotels and spas worldwide feature Coop Sleep Goods and why we have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. With our 100-night risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose, except those sleepless nights. Get 25% off your first order when you visit coopsleepgoods.com/comedy. That's COOP sleepgoods.com/comedy.
Weirdly enough, these two movies and Phantom of the Paradise, are circumventing the normal way a story akin to this would be told in a way that audiences simply were not prepared for en masse. But over time, people find it more refreshing, more interesting, and find more offshoots after it for like, oh, I like this. I want to find more things like this than you do like, well, I never want to see that again. There's just over time, they're just a little too, I wouldn't say progressive, but just a little more ahead of their time than the actual time frame they're released in.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. It would be funny given how ultra dark the more recent Evil Dead movies have been, if they turned around and did one that was slapsticky and funny.
Yeah.
But given the measured responses of horror fans online these days, and the measured response of horror fans to the two newer Evil Dead movies, I don't think that would go over considerably less well than this did.
People, for the most part, generally have no idea how the good they have it for any particular
for anything,
music, movie, TV, anything that they have at that particular moment. I mean, our pal Deandra, who's the world's, biggest Nightmare on Elm Street fan, but loves horror in general, had someone comment on her TikTok the other day, like, wow, this year is just like full of sequels and remakes, nothing original in terms of horror.
I'm sorry, this year?
Yeah.
2020. Are we talking 2024?
2024.
The year
this was a comment that literally went across one of her videos days ago, Gina.
The same year that Longlegs and The Substance came out?
Yes, the same year that Longlegs, The Substance came out. Just in terms of variety, I will grant you, and we've said this before, the year did not start on a high. When you're starting out the gate with Night Swim, which, by the way, did you listen to the Flophouse?
I haven't. But also, Night Swim is not a remake of anything, is it?
No, it's also, to its credit, original. Like, no one else is pitching haunted pool movies right now. It's the only one who's doing it.
What remakes have there been this year that I am unaware of? Because
to my knowledge, I can't think of a single
because the
remake.
First Omen is not a remake; it's a prequel.
No, it's a prequel. And granted, within a franchise, we've also had, Alien Romulus, which is within a franchise. But I would say those are great franchise movies.
Those are great. Yeah, those were both very solid movies in their respective franchises.
Yeah,
I mean,
just the variety that we have, to me, says you're not even attempting to find some of these smaller films that are within the cracks that 5 years from now, people will be saying, oh, people didn't appreciate how fucking good Exuma was at the time. They're not appreciating Oddity. They're not appreciating Cuckoo. They're not appreciating, all of these other really wholehearted attempts to do something new. Even stuff that I might not love off the top. Like I did not love Late Night with the Devil, but that's trying something new. Y'all.
I would never criticize it for having a lack of originality. It was,
right.
It was very, very clever. I said this, I used this phrase before. I didn't come up with it myself. I picked it up off of I think the former Twitter, where phrases people are like, Charlie Brown had hose. No, he didn't.
Yes.
Why would you say that? and it just means when I say this is a real Charlie Brown had hose moment. It's people just say shit without and I feel like you're wrong when you say this, but you have to you cannot operate in any mode but critical and complaining and bitching about stuff you really turns out you clearly don't know anything about.
Well, the last thing I want to do or you want to do is like gatekeep, but it turns out there's a certain amount of gatekeeping that needs to be done. It's like you need to be in touch with fucking reality.
I am genuinely befuddled at someone insisting that there have only been remakes this year. I name more than one.
Yes. And also, I think there is this mass
and like straight to streaming does not count.
Right, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? He's got it. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. There was Salem's Lot. He's absolutely right.
That's right. Yeah,
Horror's dead. There's nothing good.
It's official. It ruined everything. And, it's fine. Like, we didn't have the greatest opinion of it, but it is, Gina Radcliffe copyright fine in a lot of respects. I'm sure there is a better version of that movie that exists. We weren't, allowed to be shown it for various reasons that make absolutely no fucking sense by a company that is also so many billions in the hole. It doesn't know what to do with itself. What are you going to fucking do?
I'm trying to think about like the bleak state of horror when this came out, 92 or 93. And I mean, folks, you want to talk about slim pickings.
Exactly.
Go back then and give me your only remakes, sequels, just I mean, like you're right. People, it's never enough for people. It is never enough.
But I also think that there's a mass delusion that sometimes people put on themselves, particularly when it comes to 80s horror, that it was this massive burst of imagination and everyone was into it and everything was great. And you're like, no, actually, a lot of it was repetitive to the point in which, Siskel and Ebert are like, we're not doing slasher. We're not covering any slasher on this. We're fucking done with this genre. You had a bunch of great movies that absolutely fucking flatlined at movie theaters that we now consider banger classics. And you did have a bunch of sequels because the town is kind of built on looking into your old files and go, what can I do with this? Let's make a werewolf movie. And then suddenly there's 3 fucking werewolf movies in one goddamn year.
Right.
It is great that we all have them, but you cannot delude yourself into believing that all these things were the biggest hits at the time and everyone appreciated their genius. We're talking about Army of Darkness right here. And at the time, barely anyone appreciated any part of genius in this movie. So it's just one of those things that over time, that is what ultimately equals what a film's legacy is. And its immediate reaction is not necessarily its final statement after the fact. And you can't, as you say, Charlie Brown had hose your way into these weird fucking statements.
Right. It's just, I don't even know, do you want someone to sit down and give you a presentation about how that's patently incorrect?
I do think people, they want you to defend what they believe to be the indefensible. There's no way you can talk your way out of this one. This is just something we all know. And you're like, no, it isn't. You, and I'm sure a small quadrant of people have this belief, and you can. No one is stopping you. But also, look around, my guy. There is so much great shit this year, and what is ultimately kind of a slow year on the whole due to strikes. Like, a lot of the stuff was held back from last year to come out now, specifically because they weren't making nearly enough. And next year, we're also going to have a somewhat slow year as the movies come back from terrible financial decisions by the most, rich people in the fucking world.
But even like movies that are, arguably remakes, let's say Nosferatu, a remake of a movie that came out almost 100 years ago. So
right.
Quit fucking complaining because I don't believe that you saw the Klaus Kinski version. Thank you very much.
Or we're so inundated with Nosferatu. It's like it's just coming out of our eyeballs. It's just constant Nosferatu content.
You've got that.
There's no way Robert Eggers can possibly make something new out of that.
But you've got that, and you've got Lee Winnell's Wolfman coming out, I believe, early next year.
Yes,
but
in January.
You can't look at the trailer for Wolfman and say, yeah, this is just another Wolfman. It looks like it is trying something interesting. And
yes.
And I am, very interested because I was a huge fan of The Invisible Man. Yeah. I think that was one of the tensest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And I am very excited to find it's another werewolf movie because, again, we're inundated with werewolf movies. We get one maybe every 5 years or so. Except for like 81, which was a gold mine of werewolf movies.
Right.
But Nosferatu, like, look at those trailers and you tell me, this is just another remake. Please.
Yeah. I just don't believe it. There's no evidence for it. It's just like you say, it's the Charlie Brown head hosification of the internet where people will try something.
They just say shit. Say shit. And it's like, it's like when people, make a statement and then they say, fight me. And it's like, I am not going to waste the spiritual energy telling you that you are wrong because you know you're wrong.
Yeah. People dream, I think, in some regards of being that one contrarian who is proven right. And it's just a very rare avenue to start driving down with with the pedal to the metal. It's just not very true the vast majority of the time. Or you need to put a lot more thought into that contrarian belief. But that's just one of those weird ass statements where you're kind of like, where are you deriving this information from? It's one thing to not like the amount of movies or the kinds of movies I like. It is another thing to confidently, with your whole chest, just put out there, yeah, it's been a year of very repetitive shit. And you're like, what part of Longlegs is that you're talking about? What part of half, 3/4 of these movies are you talking about? If you like horror, what is lacking for you? Because I have to say, on the whole, we're getting a wide variety of types of horror to consume.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's like when I see people like, I don't know what you want.
Yeah,
and then of course the classic punchline to all this is when you do put out a movie like Longlegs, then it's like, no, not like that. I said I wanted something new, not like, but not that.
Or that any film that has any sort of reference to it, which all art does, because all art is a conversation, that it is somehow not original. And that's when I'm like, my guy, are you telling me you don't understand movies? You're telling me you don't understand television? It's all a fucking conversation. It's all a reference point and then finding a new way to tell an age-old story. There are only so many stories to be told. I don't think people quite understand the definition of originality. They seem to think that you just reach out into the stars and something new and bold comes out, as opposed to a life of influences and story development and collaborative story making. And then out of it comes originality, but we all know where parts of it come from. Like that's, come on, y'all. You know how this works.
Right, exactly.
This movie that we're talking about, Army of Darkness, has a shit ton of references to it. It doesn't look anything like medieval England. Like every time they're outdoors, it's either a model, with a background there just showing on a camera, or it's like Vasquez Rocks, like the place that Star Trek used for every desert planet. It is a mishmash. It is doing something that you've both seen and heard of in a different way. And that is what makes it come alive, is the fact that every other line out of fucking Ash's mouth, or even evil Ash's mouth, is fucking hilarious. That is just not something you're going to get a lot of Sand and Sandals stop motion skeleton army movies.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Need new glasses or want a fresh new style? Warby Parker has you covered. Glasses start at just $95, including anti-reflective, scratch-resistant prescription lenses that block 100% of UV rays. Every frame's designed in-house with a huge selection of styles for every face shape. And with Warby Parker's free home try-on program, you can order 5 pairs to try at home for free. Shipping is free both ways, too. Go to warbyparker.com/covered to try 5 pairs of frames at home for free. warbyparker.com/covered.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Everybody sleeps, but no two people sleep alike. At Coop Sleep Goods, we celebrate the way you sleep differently. We believe everyone deserves a great night's sleep with their own pillow. And the adjustable, customizable Coop pillow makes it easy. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or even a starfish, we've got the perfect pillow for you. Crafted with our innovative memory foam and microfiber fill, our hypoallergenic pillows adjust to you, not the other way around. Just tailor the fill for the perfect fit. Add some in, take some out, until your pillow's just right for you. See why luxury hotels and spas worldwide feature Coop Sleep Goods, and why we have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. With our 100-night risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose, except those sleepless nights. Get 25% off your first order when you visit CoopSleepGoods.com/comedy. That's COOP sleepgoods.com/comedy.
Oh, that whole sequence, you're good Ash and I'm bad Ash. It's so fucking funny. Like the way he's sort of leering at Bad Ash and sort of leering at him. It's just like it's just hilarious. The part where he's fighting with the skeletons with the book, and they do the Three Stooges try to poke him in the eyes, and he puts his hand up, and they poke him. The hands just come out of the other way. I don't know that I would say I'm a huge Three Stooges fan, but I am a Three Stooges appreciator, and that scene gets me every time.
It's just so wild and so wacky attached to a movie. It's like, if he doesn't start this army of demons, they'll ravage the earth. Like, but they have time enough to go wah, wah, wah him in the face. Like, all of this is such a delightful mishmash. And I think you do have to be able to appreciate it. I don't think it captures everybody, but you can't say that it's not coming from a source of reverence, love, and just wanting to put more of this back into theaters.
Yeah, I just, as you said about Evil Dead 2, is that these demons are intent on driving him mad. And now, since he's already in Army of Darkness, since he's already there, now they're just fucking with him. You've got these like tiny ashes that like gang up, and he's trying to step on them, so they all work together to pick up a nail, so he steps in it, and just the like gasp of pain is just like it's so funny and so. Like it's like watching a live action Tom and Jerry cartoon, really.
Yeah, it is very Looney Tunes. It is very cartoon comedic. And that's a vibe you're either down with or you're not. And I can understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I just also, there's no other Evil Dead movie to my knowledge that you could have a Monty Python and the Holy Grail-esque riff along to other than Army of Darkness. This is the only one that has that amount of great lines attached to it that you're like, yeah, I'd pay in a movie theater for all of us to say, give me some sugar, baby.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It demands. I'm surprised I don't see it. I did actually see it in a theater eventually. But many years later, when a theater was screening all three of the Evil Dead movies at the time, this was before the 2013 came out, but it does seem ripe for screenings, even if just like midnight screenings, because you've got a dedicated fan base. And I think that you've got people who, want to introduce the movie to, someone who's never seen it, whether it's their kid or just a younger audience member, because I do think it is such a joyfully silly movie that, even if you don't end up watching the rest of the Evil Dead movies, it's a really entertaining experience.
It is a worthy experience unto itself, which I think is the highest praise you can give any sort of franchise entry, in that its worth is not how does it fit into everything else. Its worth is, this is a fun movie you should watch regardless.
Right. Like it helps to watch at least the second watch Evil Dead 2. Yeah. But you don't necessarily have to. And certainly these days you can just, get all you need to know from the internet.
Yes. And it provides you with previously on Evil Dead.
It does have a little Cliff's Notes recap of everything that happens.
And then you get to the final half an hour of this, which just becomes this massive battle against an army of skeletons who are playing the flute on their femur bones.
Patrick, you read my mind. I was going to represent exact moment.
There are just very few things in this world that I feel like are so formative to what we do on this show than having fun with skeletons. And this movie has nearly 25 minutes of it. This is skeleton fun on a massive scale.
Yeah, you've got burnt skeletons, you've got crusty skeletons, you've got regular skeletons.
You've got a wonderful, theme written just for them. There's a lot to really enjoy about the movie. It goes out of its way to just try to entertain you at all costs. And so I'll grant you that it's not going to be on everyone's wavelength, but like I've said many times, 60% of the time it works 100% of the time. That is this movie to a T.
Yes.
It's just one of those things that if it fits within your definitions, if it brings you over to its side, it's legendary. It's not just a movie you like. It's a movie that suddenly you're obsessed with.
Right. And you know, again, the frequent, you know, quips and wisecracks end up becoming adopted into your own language.
Yes. It's just one of those things that becomes a part of your personality. It just instantly kind of grafts on. And then I do think there's a legitimate section of the movie going audience that's just going to reject it. It just doesn't work within their frame of reference of what they enjoy in a motion picture. And I think that's okay. But I think at the end of the day, there are more of the first group than the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about when it comes to Army of Darkness that you just got to get off your chest?
I feel like we are almost certainly preaching to the choir because I have no doubt that certainly long-time listeners, particularly those over 35, let's say, which generally tends to be our demographic. We are just
that's our sweet spot.
We're not hitting with the youth just yet.
A very, very small amount according to the numbers, whereas our richest, deepest vein is right in there.
We're barely
from 25 to 50.
I think the only youth we may be connecting with is Patrick's own child, and even then that's only occasionally.
Yeah, I would say that's a 50-50.
Possibly out of politeness for the old man, so
which is okay.
I mean, he seems like a nice boy. I could definitely see him going along with, yeah, Dad, sure, I'll watch this with you. Get me out of here.
I was told by a teacher that he's like one of the kindest kids they've ever met. And I like literally burst into tears telling him how proud I was of that compliment.
Yeah, my kid got kindness awards in school. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like I'm a real fucking bitch sometimes.
Well, that's the thing. Like we're the safe zone. I'm not going to put him out on the street. So part of it is like being safe enough to reject, kind words or advice or anything like that, because he knows he won't be, instantly jettisoned off into the wilderness. But it's all a part of growing up. But deep down, when I'm not around, when his mother isn't looking over his shoulder, he's a good, kind kid to other people. I'll take that any fucking day of the week.
You know what else I'll take? Army of Darkness.
Yeah. It's fucking brilliant. I mean,
it's a truly delightful movie.
It's handmade. It's wonderful effects work. It all feels, is it state of the art? No, but every state of it is artistic.
And it's most importantly, it is made with love.
Yeah. It's deeply felt at its looniest moments, at its deepest moments. Every part of it feels like this is exactly what the feeling I wanted to give you. And I don't feel that happens with every movie. And it's very difficult with a movie that was fucked with as much as this movie was.
Right.
I just think a lot of people wanted to be in the Sam Raimi business because they knew what we all know. And that is like, he's going to find this one pop culture ephemera and he's going to cause a revolution with it. You just don't know which one it's going to be. Is it going to be Darkman? Well, that did well. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it did well. Is it Army of Darkness? Actually, no. And there's a lot of reasons why not, particularly because they're not telling people what the fuck it is or when it's coming out. Is it The Quick and the Dead? Well, people kind of butt up against that one too, but it is very lovingly felt. And talk about a movie with fucking characters that is full of it. Or is it something like Spider-Man, something up until that point was practically unfilmable, and he's able to get across his love of that character, his love of that genre, and make the thing in your heart when you read those comics and when you fall in love with that character and he realizes it on screen. And it's off to the races after that. Up until that Wizard of Oz movie, which is legitimately terrible on every.
Yeah, here's the night. I know we generally try to avoid doing movies too often. We're just going to be screaming for an hour and 25 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
But if any of our patrons want that, if you're at the $10 level, you happen to get drawn for our You Pick the Movie, you could give us the Sam Raimi Wizard of Oz movie, because I have a lot to say. None of it good.
Yeah, I mean, I'd watch it over that Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that is even worse. Even worse.
Talk about somehow finding a way to make it worse. But what are you going to do? The good news is that Sam Raimi's back. He's making movies, and he's an artist that I enjoy. More often than not, he is bringing something fun and interesting to the table.
Amen.
And ultimately, how do people die in this movie? Like, they die by swords and shit.
I mean, any actual,
one guy gets torn apart to the point where he becomes a geyser of blood.
Yeah, there's that. I feel like there's more like skeleton deaths than human deaths. So it's hard to. I mean, you get Ash's girlfriend. She gets sucked into another dimension or something like that, doesn't she? Or what happens to her?
That's up for debate.
Oh, okay.
It really depends on which version of the movie you're watching. It doesn't end well for her, but it also is, I don't know. You could debate it.
I mean, I wouldn't mind coming back. I wouldn't mind coming back as dying and coming back as an evil skeleton version of myself.
True. Yeah. There's a lot of people get smashed in the face and shit like that, but this isn't full of grisly. Yeah, deaths. It's really full of grisly dead people.
This is mostly like battleground deaths, and that's not as fun and exciting to talk about as one-on-one things.
So at the end of the day, what you need to choose is not a death venture, but is to choose to watch Army of Darkness again, because it's worth your time and attention.
Watch it again for the first time.
Yeah. Enjoy it from that standpoint.
Drop a rock on your head so that you lose your memory of watching Army of Darkness. Yeah. And then watch it again.
Yeah. It's worth your time and attention. So that just about does it. Speaking of Patreon, if you're not a Patreon supporter and you love the show, there's lots of extra episodes for you to listen to there. Bonus episodes covering movies, talking over movies and commentary, and our chat by chat where we answer your questions. Or you could go to joshhollis.com to get his kind of podcast artwork, which if you're doing a podcast, that's where you go. Go to RevengeBodyMemphis at bandcamp.com to get this theme in all of our remixes, and follow us and rate and review us on your podcatcher of choice. It's actually been nice with Spotify's addition of comments. To be able to read comments and respond back to it. It's something that not everyone else has. I'm not encouraging you to be a Spotify subscriber necessarily, but I have enjoyed the influx of conversations we've been having about various episodes. And so if you haven't rated and reviewed us, please do so. It's how we're seen and heard by more people like you. Gina, where can people see and hear more from you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television and pop culture on my Substack, GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. If you look there, you can see a few of my extended write-ups on some stuff we've covered here, including the previously mentioned Longlegs, the new Salem's Lot, and Late Night with the Devil.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.